You can ask it. Hey, thank you. Welcome to the Let's Make a Pact broadcast. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to get right into the discussion about the state of current affairs. We know if you watch TV or any other the other news media outlets, then you are pretty much up to date on what's going out here. So we might cover varying topics, but the topics will center around the condition that's in the Black community right now and all those factors that impact it. And so we're going to dive right into politics because I know that's what everybody is humming about these days. And our guest, Erica, we're going to introduce everybody one by one, but Erica, she has a great question for the panel tonight. And it centers around how improvement in the Black community through some type of conditioning processes. So let's go ahead and get started. Erica, what you say?
The question that I pose is if from the time we were able to talk and comprehend the way we put Bible verses into our youth, I remember being 2 and 3 having to recite and learn the 23rd Psalms. If we were taught the Constitution, politics, the state constitution, federal constitution, local laws, if we then, as a whole, as a Black community, if we could use politics to work in our favor, if we learn those things at an early age. Again, the Constitution, federal and state, local laws, the jobs of politicians, the real meaning of what a congressman, a senator, an alderman, a councilman, a mayor, if we knew the true definition of their job duties, could politics work for the Black community?
Well, let me be the first to kind of start out, and then we're going to go right down the line here. And so I'm not impressed with the system as a whole. Although I do believe we need to have a understanding of how the system works in order to we're paying into it, so we should know how it works. We support the system financially. However, because of the European indoctrination that comes with the system, I'm not seeing that we would be able to get anything out of it that would benefit us to the degree that a Black empowerment movement would benefit us. There are certain things in the system, whether we're talking about the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, whether or not we're talking about education and other federally funded programs that we pay into, that their standards of operation and processes conflict with the Black community being successful or being able to thrive within those systems. I think that even as if we did learn the system to the degree of indoctrination in which you're asking, Erica, we would, if we published the numbers, the data would still show that we would lag behind because those standards are not, those European standards are not meant for us. We can get into the details of each one. Specifically, education is something that we can probably all attest to, that the education that they're actually feeding us, the standards, the testing, were not meant for us to succeed in the first place. So if we knew all about how people are elected, the electoral college, politics, how it's ran, how do we then create a Black agenda that would talk to an educational system that would empower us? We still would have to do that as well. So I'm in more of favor in saying I'd rather support the movement and be and that would penetrate the system in a way that we could get a bigger impact from it. But that's just my take on it. So next up.
Yeah. Are we going individually, Monique, or can we all just chime in?
Go ahead, Delatri, on you.
Okay, well, I will kind of disagree, not not totally, but I would have to say that it's extremely important and very, very essential that we know the process, that we are familiar with the Constitution, that we are familiar with our individual state constitutions, that we know who our city commissioners are, our county commissioners, our state senators, our state representatives, our United States representatives, our United States senators. All of those people are have monumental impacts on our lives. Our governor, and politics is peculiarly local. Politics is local. You know, president, Congress, of course, but more than likely a decision made by the governor, the state legislature, city and county commission is going to have more of an impact on our lives than something that the president or Congress does. Um, at least more of an immediate impact. So, but in terms of government working for us, I think that we can make it work for us. I think that a large part of the reason why it doesn't is because we don't know the process, and that we don't know the power that these people have, that we don't take the time to get to know these people, that we don't write these people letters, that we don't send these people emails, that we don't call these people, that we don't show up to the city council meetings, that we don't go up to the Capitol during legislative session and meet with our senators and representatives and tell them what we want, that we don't propose legislation to them, that we don't propose resolutions, proclamations, bills, city council ordinances, all that stuff. If we collectively, as a people, are instructed on how, from an early age, as Erica said, on how government worked, on how the process worked, on what the Constitution said, these are the very things that we would be able to come back with and then say, okay, my Constitution says this in my state, or the U.S. Constitution states this, or this policy says this statute says this federal law says this, and we can use that information. I think that we can use that information and it would be a powerful tool because it would be empowering to our people to where now we can all be, and I think it would be a contributor to unifying us, because we are deeply divided as a people, I feel. And I think that knowing the process, knowing all this information, knowing who these people are, their functions, what they do, would not only um, be informative for our people, but it would also encourage more of us to get involved. It would encourage more of us to run for office. And then there would be so many of us who knew what it was all about, who wanted to be involved, that we would be able to then have the numbers that we needed to show up in droves to vote the person into office who we wanted to be our elected official, our local representative, our congressional representative, what have you. And I think so. Knowledge definitely is power. I think that I most certainly think that if we started indoctrination, if you will, early of the government, of what it means, what it's about, how it's supposed to work, how it's supposed to serve you, because every single one of us has a list of elected officials that is supposed to represent us, and I can name every single one of them. They're supposed to represent me: city, county, state, federal, all of them. And I just think that it's important for not just the laity to know the information. I think it's important for all of us to know that everybody, not only on this call, but not everyone who's listening, but everyone everywhere. Especially if you look like us. So I think that information is direly important. And I think that, we don't necessarily need to start another organization specifically and solely towards that, but I think that that's definitely something that we need to be championing. And I just think that with that information, we could then use that information, Monique, that we now know to unify and unite, and then come back and say, okay, so we all know how this thing works, y'all. We all know how it works. Okay, these are the candidates that are running this time around. Okay, we all know what the Constitution says. We all know how the election works and how the process works. So now all we need to do is, if we aren't satisfied with the people that are on this slate, then we need to find the person who we think is going to best represent us in this particular capacity. And then we need to run that person for that office. And we need to support that person. And we need to introduce that person to everybody they need to know. We need to walk neighborhoods for that person. We need to hand out literature for that person. And I just think that knowing how the system works would be extremely beneficial to everyone.
Okay, I
I,
definitely agree with that. It sounds like. Go ahead, Joe.
yeah, I agree with the latter. I agree with that, and I think the most powerful part, though, is the latter part of what you were saying, because I think the politics is a part of it, and the reason why I say that is because um, it's more about economics than anything. You know, the quote by Amsel Rothschild: "If I control the nation's money supply, I care not who makes its laws." So being able to have that economic power is important, but that fundamental, like you were saying, that fundamental understanding of how politics works, what politics is, and what's going down on your local, federal, and state level, that is important. You need to know that stuff. But I do think more of the importance should go with our economics and our building of us as a nation, and then but also understand this political realm and be able to navigate this political realm, but use our, because if you don't have any real power, you really not really at the table, you know, because like right now we don't have anything in place to hold people accountable for who we vote for, and I think that's a very, very, very important piece. But I don't disagree with what you said. I just think that's a piece of the puzzle that we need, because it has to be something more concrete, something stronger than just the politics. And like you were saying, like I said, the latter part, like you were saying, the unity, but not just the unity that we need, but some real power, real structure, something tangible that we could bring to the table and get what we need, rather than just being at the table, having a voice at the table. Um, Economic power, that real industrial power, whatever we would need, real power, that would, to me, that would help us get to where we need to go, eliminate some of the issues and problems that we have.
Yeah, Delatry, that was, I agree, to the extent that I could concede that we probably can't have one without the other. So the Black empowerment movement and putting energy into that is forefront in my mind. However, there does need to be a component that speaks to the current system that we're all governed by right now, that is continually, uh, you know, uh, 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 being representing uh, who we are in the movement. The only component, I think we do have that to a certain degree, except that we would have to start educating our kids on that in the proper manner, so that they can have some historical context on government in the United States specifically. But the component that we don't have now is that no one, including the Black leadership that we have in political positions right now, cares about a Black agenda, or would want to even talk to you. If you
Right.
would, all those representatives, congressmen, everybody that's in there now, if you walked up to them and said, hey, this community specifically, this Black community specifically is suffering under police brutality in an exorbitant amount than other communities, they would give you some cliche spiel and walk away from you. They wouldn't even address you if you can even get them to address you. So at this point, we could handle the indoctrination process, by educating our kids even at home, having a piece for them to work on so that they understand that. Because that's pretty much how I learned how government work was from home, and not necessarily that government class in school or civics or whatever they called it. But if we did that as a component of some educational things that you should be just be taught at home in the Black community, then that's okay. But how about we start with a Black agenda, a clear document that I know we probably already have, and start sending that out, and like, hey, say either you can address these or you don't. And I know we don't have the numbers behind us right now to say, hey, this community will not vote you in again. But we do have, if once they reject that, once a politician or leader rejects that agenda, we do have the ability to put that information out there that, listen, this was a clear rejection of anything that had to do with improving the Black agenda, and put those people in on blast. And I know we've talked about doing that. I know Pat, who's on the line now,
Hello.
Did she
I
just
think
get
we
kicked?
lost her. I think so. The government got her.
I hope not. I hope they didn't get it, because I was.
What? Yeah. They kicked the line. Oh, man, she was going in too. I don't know.
Anybody care to finish her thoughts?
You got, I mean,
Say something.
I mean,
shit is on my wall.
I mean, we know what, like, we have a fundamental lack of understanding of empowerment, period. In my opinion, we don't know how to empower ourselves as Black people. I'm not saying we all don't know, but I don't think there's enough of us that really understand empowerment and how that happens, and how to make it happen, and how to maintain, and how the different aspects work in being empowered. When you are only relying on one facet or one piece of the puzzle, you're not going to get your desired results.
Right.
Especially like when let's talk, like when we're talking about in the political realm, since we're talking about politics. We can't, like, when we're dealing in this realm, we can't have people just voting just to vote, like just voting because you're supposed to. Because the more we have people, like, when and not trying to throw no, this ain't about Obama, but people saying that he's not the president of Black America, or what do you expect the president to do? What you mean, what you expect the president to do? What did you vote for him to do? Did you vote for him to make change, or did you vote for him just to occupy a seat? Like, why are you voting for people? And I don't think that we know why we're voting for people. I think we vote for who we like, but we don't really understand that it has to go deeper than who you like. We vote for who can move us emotionally. It has to go deeper than who can move you emotionally. We're definitely voting the wrong way, and we don't have expectations for the people that we vote for, and that's not smart. That's not safe. It's not productive. How is it helping us? We keep doing it, but it's not helping us at all. So we got to really understand the whole political realm before we get into it. And I think that's, go back to what you were saying, Delatri, and what Monique was asking, being able to teach our children early. Like, when you're teaching your children how to read, you need to be teaching your children about the social issues. I mean, we have so many people trying to hide the truth from their children. But or I don't like to talk about politics. I don't talk about politics and religion. You know, when you see the videos, when they're going up to random people, asking them, do they know political figures? And one of the people answer, well, I'm not into politics. What the hell you mean you're not into politics? You not being into politics mean you don't give a damn about what goes on around you. You need to understand what goes on around you, but at the same time, like I said earlier, that Black empowerment piece still needs to be there along with the political piece. We have to build for self. We have to have ours. We have to do for us. And until we do that, even going into politics, we have no legs to stand on in this political realm, and we have to do that.
Well, I think one of the things, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
And I actually love Delatri's point, especially the way he worded it. But I think one of the things we have to understand, in addition to understanding the 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 I'm trying to think of the word how I want to say this. I think one of the things we have to understand, in addition to understanding the process of politics, is the scope of politics. Meaning, you know, like we need to understand, um, what particular powers these particular seats have, because a lot of us feel like by voting for president, he has these broad, wide-ranging powers where he can just make all kinds of changes and do whatever he wants. And that's not true. Likewise, a lot of us don't pay attention to school boards and things like that because we don't think that they can do anything. And again, that's not true. So in addition to understanding the process of politics, we need to understand the powers and the way, you know, the way the system affects you in your daily lives. And that's a little bit separate from the actual process. But even in gaining that understanding, you begin to gain an understanding that economics is an important part of politics, most definitely. But the smaller you get in the political arena, the less important economics becomes in terms of being able to have your voice heard. If you're talking to if you're talking about like an alderman or some other like small town person that's over a small district in a particular city, they can be swayed by votes alone. They can be swayed by numbers, and the numbers don't even